Let's see if I can get through this. You're making me laugh. Stop. Every great whiskey has rhythm, a cadence that unfolds sip by sip. And tonight's guest understands the rhythm on a whole different level. Before she even pulled a sample from a cask, Anna, oh man, I knew I was going to mess it up. Hinz. Nope. God dang it. Anyway.
That was right.
Okay, good. Spent years conducting. I'm going to have to redo the whole thing. Spent years conducting the harmonies of orchestras. Now she brings that same sense of timing, balance, and emotion to her work as business development manager. I got that right. At Westland Distilling, one of the leading voices in the American single malt area. We're talking about how the world of music and whiskey overlap, the art of blending and the composition, and what it means to find your creative voice in an entirely new medium. Anna, I screwed it up. I'm sorry.
That was amazing. That was so beautiful. Wow, what an intro.
I'm going to have to take all the little pieces out. You're here. We appreciate you so much for hanging out with us. It's going to be a great night. I have loved what Westland is doing since I was a wee lad. No, since you guys have been doing things. You guys are on the West Coast and in Texas. There is some distribution, but I don't see your bottles on the shelf as much as I would like to. Hopefully that's changing soon. But you were gracious enough, or somebody on your team was gracious enough to send us over a sample of the Westland flagship. But before we do that, a little birdie, aka yourself, talking to Doug the other day, said to pour out the next sample about 20 minutes or 30 minutes beforehand so it can open up a little bit. So I'm going to do that, just a small amount. And then when we get to this pour, I will have it both out of this and sitting out for a while.
Perfect.
That way we can see the nuance. I should have unboxed this before we started talking. So tell us a little bit about the flagship. And then we'll get in more into your background, why I was talking about music as well.
Yeah, great. Our flagship product is really the culmination of everything that makes Westland Westland. And it's certainly something that I think highlights a lot of our dedication to the pursuit of flavor and sense of place. So it primarily showcases our 5-malt mash bill, which we pioneered way back in the beginning. So that highlights our Washington Select Pale Malt, which is pale malt is typically used in making whiskey, of course. High yield, clean flavor, great. But our founders were like, what if we could add flavor in some other ways? All these different malts are used in brewing, so why don't we use them for our whiskey as well? So it's the 70% of the pale malt, 10% of Munich malt, 12% extra special malt. They don't tell us the process. That's why it's extra special. It's from Breese in Wisconsin, my home state. And then 4% of pale chocolate malt and 4% of brown malt. And then also, so that's the 5-malt mash bill that's in a lot of our whiskeys, not all of them, but many of them. And then also in the flagship, there is also a little bit of Baird's heavily peated malts. And I don't normally bring that up unless people call it out and ask if there's something peated in there, because sometimes it can put people off.
Right.
But I think in this instance, our master blender, Shane Armstrong, he uses it to extend the finish. He doesn't use it to create a smoky whiskey. That's not the point of the flagship, but it's really to make sure that it sort of lingers on your palate in a way, and it kind of adds some structure as well, which is nice. So some people get it, some people don't. It really depends on how sensitive you are to it. But this, we have our 5-malt mash bill that then we primarily mature in new American oak.
Okay.
We have 2 different styles of casks that we use. They're both from Independent Stave Company. So one is the Cooper Select, which is more akin to a bourbon barrel, air dried 18 months. It has a light toast and a heavy char. And then Cooper's Reserve is 24 months air-dried staves, and then it has a heavy toast and a light char. So just even those 2 give some flexibility for Shane in terms of the blending. But our 5-malt mash bill and the new oaks are really great together. They provide a lot of structure for each other, and they're both big flavors, so neither overwhelms the other, but it works best in harmony. We're going to go with the music thing. So, oh boy, we're going to do this all night. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But then also he uses some ex-bourbon in here as well, some pale malt that's been in ex-bourbon to give some space. You heard me talk about this earlier, that it just helps kind of spread out the flavors a little bit so it's not so concentrated. And then there's also some first fill and second fill ex Oloroso hogsheads and butts in there as well to just kind of round it out. But it's really just supposed to be this, and I think it succeeds, this well-balanced whiskey that you can use neat. It has enough flavor to stand up in a cocktail as well. I use it in a lot of cocktails at home, and it's quite fun. So it's very versatile, but also it's a kind of entry-level whiskey.
Right. And I will tell you, I've had Westland a couple of times. I don't think I've ever had flagship, and that might be ignorance on my part, right? For not having this, I mean, being the quote unquote flagship of Westland, you should get your base product. And then, but and I hate to say this, because like once you get into whiskey a little bit, and this will get into your backstory as well. Once you get into whiskey a little bit, you've tried all the things, right? You went and got the Blantons and you got the other things. And then once you start developing a flavor of what you like, you don't want the base offering, right? You want the special release. You want the new, as we say. But like, there's something to be said about the flagship that you guys have. Like it's not a special release, but the complexity just in the blending bill, that I guess that's what you would call it, the blending bill that you gave, like there's so many different components to it to make it marry into a beautiful song of a whiskey, right? So, that was so dad joke. That was bad. that one was horrible. I need to stop. But it's true, because I don't know, and it might be psychosomatic or I am just psycho. I don't know if you would not have said peated if I would have got peated. There is like you're saying, it's uplifting. It just carries that finish a little bit further. There is something mineral to it, like it has a minerality, but then also like there's just so much complexity. There's just a lot of complexity with the spirit, and it's really, really interesting. And the proof point is perfect. Like everything that is in there. What is the? I mean, if since it's a blend, it's kind of difficult. But is there a minimum age that this is going in there?
The minimum age would be 3 years, but it tends to be higher than that.
I'm sure.
It would lean more on it. It varies, kind of batch to batch.
Right.
But I'd say 5+ usually. Just kind of depends on what Shane's working with in terms of stock.
Right. And I mean, because you're pulling from available matured stock that's ready to go. So if it's 3 years and ready to go, or if it's 5 years and ready to go, and like we're going to get to this later, but you're not chasing an age statement. You're chasing a flavor profile. And so you're trying to create something in a glass that is a visceral reaction in whiskey. And I applaud you guys for doing that. So that lets me go back to my original question. What made you pick whiskey as a thing? Because obviously we talked about music already. Obviously this is not, you didn't grow up in the distillery. It's not your grandpappy's distillery. What kind of got you into that? Just give us a little background in that.
It's interesting. I have a Scottish heritage, but I studied abroad there, but I didn't drink whiskey when I was there. I couldn't have afforded it, let's be honest, as a student. No way. And it wasn't my thing. But there was at some point about 11 years ago or so, and I was sipping on some, and I just got really interested, and I wanted to know more about it. So I got a book, Lou Bryson's Tasting Whiskey, and I started reading it. It's such a good book. It's like the number one that I think I see it back there. Yeah. It's such a good intro point, I think, for everybody. So I always suggest that to people who are new on their whiskey journey. And when I started reading more about it, and because otherwise you go into a store and it's overwhelming. You see all of these bottles, you're like, I don't know what any of this means. So, okay. And I'm someone that once I get kind of interested in something and curious about it, I dive in hardcore. And as I learned more and more, I wanted to know why and we tried more and more things. I wanted to know why the whiskey tasted the way it did. Because as we all know, there's only 3 main ingredients, right? You hear this on every distillery tour that you go to, especially in Scotland. I have a bingo card. It's pretty funny.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, okay, yes, we have water, we have barley, we have yeast. You could argue that there's a few other things that go in there. Sure. But how did they get this massive range of flavors? And I was like, this is so cool. And I really want to understand that. And then diving into it more, trying more things, going to Westland, attending different educational events they had because I was merely a patron at that time, and really getting into it and going, oh, okay, so there's the barley, so there's the yeast, so now I know there's even more fine details within that, right?
Yeah.
There's the cuts, there's the barrels, there's the blending, there's all these different levers that you can pull, and even more beyond that if you want to get nuanced and nerdy. And I just found that so interesting. So when I go on distillery tours, I'm that complete dork in the corner that's taking notes, that is asking like the questions about what's your starting gravity? Oh, okay. What are the mash temperatures that you're doing? Okay. And your cut points are, and sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
It really depends. But I love geeking out about that stuff. And not everyone is as nerdy as that. And that's totally fine.
Right.
But so I got interested in it that way, and being lucky enough to have Westland nearby as a local distillery to really dive into was super helpful in my education, and going on tours with Matt Hoffman and stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, this is really helpful.
Yeah.
My husband and I went to Scotland for a trip to visit distilleries, but also to trail run. We trail run and do ultra marathons and such. So it was a good, fun trip. We've done that multiple times and sort of just exploring more and more. That's how I kind of got diving into it. And I still remember some of the first whiskeys that we had gotten, which some of them aren't my favorites now, but it was really fun to explore, right? I would in the very beginning, I did like sherry bombs. Now a little less so. Now I want to taste a little bit more of the distillery character forward spirits. And I do love peat monsters too, but I need to be in the right frame of mind for that,
Absolutely.
I want to taste the other things behind it as well, and not just, ashtrays and bad decisions, right? I want to understand more of what's going on and taste more. And especially now that I feel I'm so unbelievably lucky that I get to work in a thing that I'm extremely passionate about.
Absolutely.
And get to try a lot of cool stuff of the experimentation that we're doing. And then also now have friends in the industry where we swap samples and talk about stuff. And some of it's really weird. Some of it's not great. Some of it's awesome, right? That we're trying all these different things. And that's fun. I feel like the whiskey community is so generous that everybody wants to share. So it's quite fun. I went a little off there, but there's more to the history, but that's sort of the beginnings of whiskey for me.
Well, and that's what I love about having conversations with people is it starts at a topic and then it goes left or right or however you want it to go, and bringing it back to the community. I mean, I've got samples right here that people have given me, and I, sipping on different samples that people are like, hey, this is cool, try this, or I send out samples like this is a blind sample I'm sending to somebody, so it's really cool that not only whiskey people and people into it, but people actually in the industry do that as well. It makes me, as the guy on the other side, go, hey, I kind of fit in with these people as well. So it's really cool. So you in doing all of this, and now, so what is your role at Westland today?
Yes, my role is a business development manager, which that title doesn't really tell you much. But what I actually do is 3 different components. I manage our export markets, which are 10 of them. I sell cask to independent bottlers, which is great fun. Love that. And then I also do project management within the distillery. And that was actually what I was primarily hired for. And the other pieces have sort of been added on since I've been there.
Okay, so you would work directly with Adam and Nora from Lost Lantern. Okay. Just making sure that I'm getting so you would deal with overseas accounts and stuff like that as well. And then
yeah, so we are owned by, our parent company is Remy Cointreau,
Right.
who also own, other distilleries like Bruichladdich, for example. And so we have sales teams on the ground in these different export markets. So I'm their main point of contact. When they need different things from us and we're doing a release, they need assets or have questions, etc. And then I will also do market visits in those regions as well and attend whiskey festivals and be at the table, talk about whiskey till I'm blue in the face, which I love doing, all those sorts of things. So it's quite lucky I've been able to visit some of these markets, and it's fascinating to see what resonates with different people in these different markets and what they find is most important for them, how the palates change. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
and also seeing how the continuous battle of explaining that we are not a bourbon, it happens in the US when we're at festivals. People come up to the table. Which one of yours has the most wheat? You're like, well, none of them. What about them? Yeah. What about the most corn? Yep, definitely. We're not a bourbon, but here, let's find something that you may like. So let's talk about it. And then explaining what we are, because not everybody in the US is knowledgeable about what single malt even means, which is totally fine. It's very confusing, and I'm more than happy to take the time and explain. But then going abroad, it's interesting because, especially in Europe, they do know what single malt is, but because we're an American distillery, they think we make bourbon. So I still have to explain, no, I promise. It's still
We're like you.
Yeah. Please. But it's different. Here's why. An American single malt is such a fun category. It's just an amazing category. So I love talking about that too, and all the different whiskeys.
Absolutely. And, I know that when you talked to Doug earlier, he talked about how him and I and Germ have a podcast together, and we talk only about American single malt, it's really cool because for one, people need to talk about it because it's a real thing and it's an amazing thing, and it needs to get out there. Like you're saying, not many people know about it. So it's kind of our job as the whiskey dude to go and say the thing, like, this is really good whiskey. You should try it. And we're trying to do it in a format that's, somewhat legible and understanding, but also talking about topics that are going on. We have already got, the second one. I mean, we've had one episode, so it's not like we're, breaking it in yet, but, we've already got topics for the second episode. We're looking into, sharing samples with each other. So we're all drinking the same thing, that type of thing. It's just so cool. There's so much just in the American single malt category that you can just play with, and you can just say, like you were saying with the blend bill on this, like so much new oak, used oak, third use oak, and we're going to get into Garyana oak. I mean, there's so many different types of casking and different finishes that you can do that you're not pigeonholed into new American white oak. And it has to be 51% corn. Obviously, you have to have 100% barley, but you know what I mean? It gives you a little bit more freedom to play, but yet not do so much play to where you're not making good whiskey. You're just making whiskey, right? Like, you're not making 5 million experiments and then none of it's good, or it's going to take 10 years or 15 years for it to actually turn into something. You're actually making good whiskey that people want to drink. So that to me is a big deal, because you can make, because there's a lot of experimental distilleries out there. Corsair comes to mind. Even Chattanooga, they're doing all types of experimental stuff, which some of it's good, like you're saying, some of it's not good, so it's like but at the same time, you guys want to make sure that you're making the products that you make the best way you can, and doing it at a reasonable price as well. And that's where some people think, well, American single malt is just put on this pedestal. It's just more expensive than bourbon, and by and large, yes, because the barley is more expensive, right? That's just how it is. And unfortunately, it doesn't have, like you're saying, it doesn't have that foothold in America like bourbon does. I can go buy a bourbon right now for $12. Is it good? Whatever. But, where the most baseline American single malts start at $40 to $50, depending. There are some cheaper ones out there, but so it's like most people, when they go into the liquor store, like you're saying, they're not going to gravitate towards a single malt because, for one, they don't know what it is, and for two, they're like, oh, that's more expensive. That's like $20 more expensive, and I don't even know what it is. And so people, especially these days, are a lot more money conscious because we have less money to go around, because everything is through the roof expensive. And so it's just that's why it's for us and for you, as a spokesperson of the whiskey, to say, hey, no, this is cool. It's worth the extra. Because once you jump into it, you're going to fall in love with it. And next thing you know, you're going to have, that's the only thing on your shelf is American single malt. You got some Scotches and Irish in there, but the American single malt is taking over. And now you have to build a new little shelf because there's so many, because, it's kind of like the Pokemon cards. You got to catch them all, right? So,
I mean, you're describing my whiskey wall that I have that's in our dining room. We had a cabinet that was like, oh, this is just going to be the unopened, and we have another shelf for the opened.
Yep.
One is like Scotch and world whiskeys, one is American single malt. Now I have an entire separate bookshelf that is just Westland because there's too much, and then other spirits are in an entirely different area because it's too much. But I do love trying all the different American single malts and seeing, and if I can go visit them, right, and see and understand their process of like, why does this taste different than what we're doing, besides, kind of the basics of like beyond barley, beyond the barrels, what else is feeding into that? Because that's something that, some people can get really hung up on the proprietary nature of what we're making. But I promise you, we could tell, we do, all of our production details are on our website. So if you go look at it and you want to go do that, first off, now you've started a distillery. Good luck. Welcome to a money pit. But also, it's not going to taste the same because you're doing it differently, right? And that's what's so cool about it. And that everybody's approaching it with their own voice, at least so far.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The ones that have kind of stuck around. And I think that's just so fascinating.
Yeah. And especially the regionality of the said American single malt, because, where you guys are located, let me back up a little bit. There was a huge craft brewing scene. And there still is, obviously. And so then some of those brewers said, hey, we could make whiskey out of this as well. And then it turned into a thing. And so I feel, and this is just a personal opinion, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I feel that most American single malt distillers, not all, most American single malt distillers are coming with a pretty aware brewing background, so they know about yeast temperatures and different varietals of yeast and things like that, which make a huge difference. We're not all throwing in distiller's yeast and distiller's malts just to get the attenuation that we want out of it. You're looking at the grain bill and the complexity of these different grains and what they bring flavor wise into the mash and into the whiskey, and having to do all that testing like scientists, like, chemists and stuff like that. And it is so cool and I'm not poo-pooing big bourbon, because obviously they have a foothold and they're not going away, but like, they're like, oh, we put it in a toasted barrel. Here you go. You know, and you're like, okay, but it's the same, 45% alcohol, 75-21-4 that you've been giving us for the past 200 years. Like, nothing has changed except the finish is a little marshmallowy. Okay, cool. But I just love what, especially Westland and a lot of the Pacific Northwest. Was that how we say it? Okay. Pacific Northwest distilleries are doing it. It's almost like they're holding up a middle finger to the entire genre and saying, we're doing it our way. It's similar to the way that Texas, me being a Texas guy, similar to the way Texas is doing it. You know what? We're going to do it this way. If y'all like it, great. If you don't, you know what? There's another bottle store right there. You can find something over there. And it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see. And with this flagship, because we are going to move on, I promise. With this flagship, it is the not to take this from Murphy Quint, but it is the quintessential American single malt. It literally is what I want to drink when I'm drinking American single malt. There's enough complexity there to where I can sit here and sip it neat and talk to you and still listen and pick out notes at the same time. There's a little bit, now I'm getting that little bit of smoke after I haven't drank it in probably 5 minutes. I'm getting that little bit of smoke that lingers. It just kind of sits there. But it's also not so complex and not so like a sherry bomb, like you're saying, to where you're like, whoa, man, I gotta back up a little bit. Like I could sit down with a glass of this, watch a movie, enjoy the heck out of it, and just, have a good time with it. But I can also do a in-depth review of it and say, this whiskey is A, B, C, D, and all of the things. And that's to me, what makes an excellent whiskey. And I applaud you guys for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I always like to say when I'm introducing people to our whiskey, that we are not trying to copy what Scotch is doing. They're doing a fabulous job. We can all agree. We also can't make it like cheaper than they can or something like that. So why bother? There's no point in doing that. That would be a silly endeavor. So really it's about approaching it of what we want to say about our local ingredients and everything else and how we want to approach it. But it doesn't make it better or worse, but we obviously want to make a really wonderful whiskey that is emblematic of our area and that people really want to drink. That's really the point, right? That's otherwise, what are you even doing here? Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing with this, as you're describing, like with the neat and like being able to pick out notes, we like to talk about that and how complex something is. And if it's high clarity in terms of the notes, it might be lower complexity, like those things. It's hard to get both at the same time.
Right.
So definitely aiming for some highly complex whiskey that is still really delicious and approachable. But I would say too, I don't know if you like to do cocktails ever, but old
fashions mainly, but
of course, I prefer a spirit forward cocktail myself. Yes, because I want to taste what's in there. Right. If I deign to have a cocktail, but it is super killer in a Manhattan because it has the dark and structuredness in there, structured notes in there, but also, I mean, great in an old fashioned. I make different simple syrups to kind of play around with it a little bit, brighten it up. We also have a recipe that we use it in a spritz in the summer, which sounds really weird, but it is so good. It's so good. So on a hot day for you, most of the year might work. And having something like that, we're like, yeah, actually, I still have the brightness of a spritz and the Aperol in there, but still some of the complex notes of the whiskey can stand up to it. Yep. And it's like, oh, that's actually pretty cool that you can do that. Right?
Yeah, that is. I will tell you, it's actually 66 degrees here right now. So
do you have a sweater on?
We almost. We are literally almost freezing over here, guys. Just understand that. No, it literally 2 days ago it was 95. So I don't know what's going on, but anyway. We're going to be okay. No, I enjoy the colder weather, being a polar bear of a man that I am. I enjoy the colder weather. It does kind of stink for my day job. I am a plumber by trade, own my own business, and so going out and fixing broken pipes in the freezing cold, it's not fun. I do not pride myself with the crack. I make sure I have my pants pulled way up. So just understand that I'm not one of those guys. I try to be very professional, even though I don't look very professional, with all the tattoos and,
You're fine. I have that too.
I know you do. I was, we can talk about tattoo culture as well, because I know that's a huge thing, for me. I quit getting tattoos for a while, mainly because my tattoo guy passed away, which is very sad. But, and also I was like, I'm running out of room. Not really, but I'm like, I don't know. I get to a point to where I'm just like, I want to get this, but I'm like, man, it kind of hurts and it's a lot of money. And, it's just like all the things. And I'm like, I'll wait. And then I wait and it never happens. So, it's life. So, okay. Let's move on, because I feel this next one we're going to talk about it for 2 seconds. Okay. We're going to talk about it. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay. That's fine.
2 seconds. And I promise. And then we'll move on. So we are going to get into the Garyana 10. Now, this is not only the 10th edition, but this is actually a 10-year, one of the first. Is it the first or one of the first?
It's our first age statement single malt. Yes.
Okay, so that is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get it over with. There was a thing that happened. Somebody stole a bunch of whiskey, and like half of it, right? Approximately
40%.
40%. Okay, so 40% of the whiskey's gone. So the cool thing that Westland and you guys did, you basically said, "Hey guys, this happened, and sucks. We're sorry, but here's what we have. Come and get it if you want it." And the coolest thing that I can say that for on your behalf and the distillery's behalf, you did not, just because you lost the whiskey, you didn't raise the original price of the whiskey because you had less. You were just like, sorry, there's only this much, and hopefully the other whiskey can be recovered or whatever, and we don't have to talk any more about it. I know there is an ongoing investigation with it, and I don't want to pry into it too much, and you can say your piece, but just know that like these guys are trying to give you the best whiskey that they can, but when they have 40% less whiskey, it's really hard. And so just understand that we're going to get into it, and I can guarantee you it's going to be an amazing dram, and I'm going to have to go buy a bottle. I understand, but okay, say your piece and then we'll be done with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've kind of already covered it, and
we have.
Thankfully don't actually have much to say about it because I don't know much, because the investigation is ongoing. But it did in fact happen. There's some really good write-ups about it, but we did want to focus on what we do have, and that we are still really proud of the whiskey that we have. And we're just going to keep talking about the beautiful whiskey that it is, and try to just keep celebrating that and not let it be too stained. Because, it happened, and it does happen. And does it suck? Absolutely. It sucks so much. It was definitely not an ideal situation.
No.
We're like, really? That truck? Out of all of the other trucks, and it had to be that one, but not like any of the other things that had more of our just core SKUs on it. No, it had to be this truck. That cool. Thanks so much.
And that's what, you're like, okay, so they were seeking out that truck because, there's a reason behind it. You're not just picking up a thing. Anyway, long story short. So, okay, I poured this 30 minutes ago, and I poured it just now. So I'm going to go into it while you explain to me this complex blend, Bill. You don't have to go into that much detail about it. I'm not going to hold it against you. I know it's going to be a good whiskey. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go into all the details because I have all of the notes.
I was joking. Get into it. Hurry up.
I was like, really? Because I'll give you the percentages, dude.
Please do.
Yeah, so as you said, it's 10 years old, which is wonderful. Leading up to this point, and we still believe in this, that age is just a number. It's not required to have a good whiskey. We still believe that we can deliver delicious whiskey that is of any age, but it's still something to celebrate, and that is exciting. So we were thrilled to be able to offer this. It is 50% ABV. And there's a mix of malt bills in here. So there is our 5 malt mash bill, and there's also some pale malt as well, which there's different types of pale malt in there as well, 4 different styles. But so that's kind of the main makeup of that. But that's not really what you're going to taste so much. You're mostly going to be tasting the cask in this. And so if I simplify it somewhat, if we're looking at the general cask types, 32% of it is Gariana oak. And for those who may not know, I'll just say this briefly, but Gariana oak, it is the common name for Quercus gariana, which is our native oak species here in the Pacific Northwest. It is only grown in this area in about a 50-mile wide band from Northern California to Southern BC. There's actually quite a bit of it in Victoria, I learned when I went there last year. But it's just in this area, which is quite cool that we have something that's just local to us. So exploring that flavor is pretty unique. And as we were discussing on Doug's live stream, it is a very flavorful whiskey. It is flavorful wood to be used in a barrel. It is
Mhm.
difficult to work with. It has an extremely high tannin content, so it needs to be air dried for at least 3 years, but some of the barrels have been air dried for longer, because otherwise it is just very aggressive and astringent to the point of being unpleasant. But if you can mellow it out with that, it is beautiful because it has this savory spice note to it. And there's a higher quantity of eugenol in there, which is the clove note. So any of the spices you're going to get, it's based off that, really.
Wow.
Or one of the components rather. And then also the guaiaco content is going to be this sort of smoky, savory bit, almost smoky, not quite,
Right.
but this sort of savory bit to it. So in the early days, when we did do a few single casts at the distillery, we would liken it to Kansas City barbecue. Which is like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get that sort of, there's the savory spice, and depending on the cask that's with other casks with it, it might be a little sweet.
Right.
A side note, that does not work when I'm in Europe trying to explain this whiskey. I do not have, I do not have another way to explain.
What is that?
Yep. And then I've been trying to find another comparison, and that is just not the style of food that is eaten.
No, it's not.
Not helpful. Anyway, so there's mostly that Gariana oak in there, but it's going to be some new oak as well as some reused Gariana. So there's both of them in there. And once it's been used, just like any barrel, the flavors kind of calm down a little bit, and it actually showcases really beautiful flavors as well. So we have 32% of the Gary oak. We have 22% wine, and that's mostly Tempranillo, but it's, again, this is a small quantity, really. Right. And then also PX, so Pedro Jimenez sherry, we're going to lump that in with that as well. There's more of that in here. And then a teeny tiny little bit of port. And there's the fun story about that. And then there's 17% rum. So that's going to be after Gariana. That's, if you get more drill down further, that's like kind of the next thing that's really showcasing. And we haven't done that with Gariana before. We've played around with PX, we've played around with red wines, we played around with Oloroso, there's been brandies that have gone in there, some Calvados, but not ever rum. So I think it's quite cool that Shane was exploring that in here, because I personally really like what rum does with single malts. It brightens it in a really interesting way. And then there's also some bourbon casks in there as well, because as we've described, creating some space so it's not too aggressive. But yeah, it's a complicated whiskey in terms of the makeup, I think. So what are you getting from it? What is your palate?
Okay, so I will tell you, the ones that's been sitting, it's like the nose is a lot softer. I would say it's not as, I don't want to say punchy because it's not punchy at all, but this one is bright with a citrus and also that clove, that clove that you're talking about. It's coming through. Whereas on the one that's been sitting, it's more, I'm getting more like a honeysuckle, or maybe even like dried apricot or something like that, to where it's really nice and inviting. It's just kind of tamped it down. And then on the flavor on the one that was just poured, it really has I'm going to say a spice to it, but like it akins me to a rye spice, right? It's very like, it's not punchy, but it has that clove and maybe even a little cardamom in it. And it's really inviting me, but then it kind of mellows it out. I'm guessing it's the rum that kind of just gives it a little bit of space, like we say, gives it a little space. And then it just finishes out with that really nice, I'm going to say, the wine finish. And then we can talk about how the port is involved in this, because that's an interesting story, because it's similar. It's kind of an infinity blend, as some would say. But it just lingers for so long, and it's just like a sticky, like I don't know if you ever do this, but making my son a peanut butter and jelly. And slapping the jelly on there, and then I got some jelly on my hand. I licked my finger, and I'm like, "Oh, what was that? Was that jelly or poop or chocolate?" Type thing. And I'm like, "No, okay, that was jelly, good." And then like 5 minutes later, I'm doing something else, and I'm like, because I'm a child and I put my hands in my mouth all the time. I'm like, "Oh, what is that?" It's that lingering, like berry note at the very
Mhm.
end that just keeps going and keeps going. But then it's like a subtle spice just pushing it as far. And I mean, I'm 2 minutes pulled away from it already, and I can still, and it's
Mhm.
still just lingering on and on as I'm talking and rambling. So
Yeah.
to me, I'm not going to say I prefer, because I think they're both absolutely fantastic. But I'm not mad at either one of them, but like, I'm one of those people that will leave, a quarter ounce of whiskey in there for 30 minutes and kind of forget about it because I'm doing something else, and then go back to it. And I'm like, oh, that's changed.
Mhm.
So it's really cool to do that and see the differences just in this little bit of time. And it's really cool to think of, after you get past the neck pour in the bottle and you get a little oxidation in the actual bottle, how it's going to open up and change and be a little bit different actually in the bottle as well. So I'm excited for that as well.
Mhm. I mean, the changeability of it is really fascinating to me because, I mean,
Yes.
a lot of whiskeys do this, but this one, it does it a lot.
It does it a
Like
lot.
like, quicker than I would have imagined, because there's even times when Shane has been working on blends, and this has happened multiple years in a row. He'll be working on prototypes, and he'll say, "Hey, come on in, try these." Like, cool. He'll lay out 3 of them, and he does a whole blind. He has a whole numbered system.
Mhm.
It's fantastic, very data driven.
Mhm.
So I'm trying them, but even between going them from when it is freshly poured, and then I'm not spending like 20 minutes on each one. I'm doing it reasonably quickly, even
Right.
going back to the first one again, and you're like, wait a second, okay. This is now changed, and it depends on what it's with and how
Yeah.
sometimes it can go a little more savory. This one seems to, like, the really bright esters kind of
Mhm.
fade, and that's
They
pretty
do.
typical.
Yeah.
That's very typical of any whiskey, but you're gonna get some of those other notes beneath it.
Mhm.
I would say that blackberry is also something that we often get in Garyana. So the clove is really the star of the show.
Mhm.
But with some of those other flavors, it's almost like a blackberry syrup kind of
Mhm.
thing. Like, it's not sweet
No.
per se, but that's the most kind of fruit notes that we've ever gotten out
Mhm.
of Garyana casks is that kind of note. And it's fascinating to see how then all of these different casks play. And when you're talking about citrus, I'm like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
definitely getting citrus on that.
Mhm.
But then there's also these other spices that continue to linger. For me, I can only liken it to like a powdered ginger on the
Okay.
finish that
Okay.
just keeps going. Not like fresh ginger, not like you're eating sushi, but like a
Right.
powdered ginger. But it's, yeah, someone dumped the baking spice drawer like in your face, right? Like
Yeah.
but in a very enjoyable way.
Absolutely.
Um, but that's what it can be.
Mhm.
And this one is more balanced in that, and it's a fine balance to work, because otherwise it can just be over the top. Or I've had some other, not ours, but some other ones from other parts of the world that maybe have used Garyana,
Mhm.
and it's either an extremely light touch, which is totally fair,
Right.
um, or in a way that you're like, it's kind of like licking a tree a little bit, um, which that can happen to any whiskey, right?
Mhm.
If it's just over oaked, you're like, well, crap. Now that's now we need to blend that out into something
Yeah.
else, right?
Something. Yeah.
But with the tannins and everything, you just have to be like really careful with
Mhm.
how it's done. And it's
Yeah.
been really cool to see the journey over the 10 years and how they have changed edition to edition. His last year's was focused on pairing Garyana with an Oloroso cask. So
Mhm.
definitely leaning more. It wasn't actually a sherry bomb, but it was leaning in that direction. I'm
Right.
like, okay, wow, it's like seeing what this Oloroso can bring to the party.
Right.
The year before that with Aint, which was our like super award-winning one, which was amazing.
Mhm.
That was a PX finish. And Shane was chasing the sort of floral quality that was in the PX casks there. And so it was a lot more delicate. And you're like,
Mhm.
how did you do that with Garyana? Like, that's hard to do, because the year before, Garyana 7 is red wine casks. And that was like the biggest, boldest one. I happen to really adore that edition
It's
because it's
pretty
like
good. Yeah.
grabbing you by the lapels. I've got
Yeah.
something to say. And you're like,
Yep.
okay, yep,
Okay.
got it.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
We are, yep, great.
Back up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I'm
Uh,
listening.
So it's, you know, just to see how each edition is different, and then if he's playing with peat or not, and it's quite fun. And as we know from Bartolome, pairing Garyana with, you know, peated with McCarthy's is brilliant. Like it can stand up to that. And
Absolutely.
create great flavors there.
It really can. And I will tell you that blackberry note that you're talking about, I get it, but it's like, for me, and this is right now when, and that's the thing, that's the coolest part about sipping whiskey, and especially with other people, is it's all subjective, right? It's what you've ate, it's your mood, it's everything going around it. But this likens to, like, yes, I get that blackberry note, but it's almost like when you've finished the blackberries, like you have a little tub and you're just, you know, like a raccoon just eating the blackberries out of the thing, and then you're done with them and you have like the little pits in your teeth because they're crunchy, you know, but then it's like this kind of like, I don't want to say tannic, but I'm going to say tannic for lack of a better word, because I'm not eloquent in what I say. It's like a tannic little blackberry burst in your mouth, to where you're like, okay, it's blackberry, but it's like also like a little bit of the wood influence, and all of this stuff is just lingering at the end. And it's not so much sweet. It's kind of tart, you know, maybe even a little acidic, but not in a bad way. And that's the other, when you're saying tasting notes, sometimes they sound really bad. And you're like, why am I saying that this tastes like blah, 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 when it might, but to me it does, you know, like walking into my grandpa's, you know, study, and he's smoking a pipe and on a leather chair. And I'm like, have you ate a leather chair? Does it taste like no, it does not taste like a leather chair. But we get those tasting notes all the time, right? It's like leather, pipe tobacco, all of the things. Are you eating that? No, it's the assumed taste and smell and the accompaniment of all of those things put together, which makes, I will say this, and I don't know if you do other liquors out there, but I would say which makes whiskey the best, period. Now, I know people can say Armagnac, Cognac, all of those things are right up there with it, and some people now say tequila. If you can actually get tequila these days, you know, I mean, if you're not getting sued for just having neutral grain spirit, whatever, it's fine. But that makes me think, like, that's why people geek out on whiskey so much.
I mean, it is something that oftentimes is designed to have a lot of really interesting flavors, and certain whiskeys, or if you get a single cask or something like that, that has what I call elbows and knees, it's just got a lot of character to it. And I think that's really interesting. And sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you go, I just want to have something I can just sit on the couch with and just enjoy and not have to think about it, and have a very sippable, you know, lovely time. And I have whiskeys for that. And then you have what I call our intellectual whiskeys. And there actually is one, I have a running joke with this with some friends of ours. It is an old Westland Peat Week. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but it had really weird flavors in it. Not weird in bad way. Of course, here we're going to say this. Not weird in a bad way, but it had some it had a very interesting casket they used, this like French oak. Gosh, I don't remember. I'd have to look up what it was. Something crazy though that we haven't used since, as far as I know, but don't quote me on that. On this recording, don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to ask Shane, but this particular whiskey had like some sage and blueberry, but also smoke. But there was also a lot of interesting other things going on. So I called it I was calling it a Schoenberg. I don't know if you're familiar with Schoenberg's compositions.
No, I'm not.
I would. So for any classical music people out there, if there's two of you, great. But it's contemporary music, and it's what I call, it's very crunchy. It's very intellectual. It is something that can be very atonal, not necessarily just pleasant listening, but it's interesting. But sometimes you're like, okay, is that interesting for being interesting, or like?
Are we just being weird to be weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, it was actually designed, but depending on what you're looking for, right? In your art form, in your whiskey, it's vastly different what everybody's looking for in that moment. But that particular whiskey, that particular peat week, I just call it a Schoenberg because I was like, this is just a really intellectual dram. Like you need to sit with it. You need to think
Amen.
about it because you're not just going to grab that off the shelf and just start downing it.
Right.
You're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what is happening?
What am I doing? Oh.
It's not right for that. But
Right.
that joke only works with a very select group of people, which are luckily like my husband and like one of our whiskey friends. He's also a music person. So anyway.
Yeah. No, but it makes sense because there are some drams out there that just make you sit up and pay attention. And then others that are just so weird, but you keep going back to them and you're like, why am I going back to this? Like, it is so weird. Like I need to like get rid of it, but like it's like a abusive relationship between you two. You're like, I love you and I hate you and I love you and I hate you, but like I don't know, but that's what makes it so cool because each person's going to taste it differently. They're going to say, hey, this is great, this is not, whatever, and it just brings it back to the whole community aspect where it's like, hey, this is weird, try this. I don't know if you'll like it. You might not like it. Not everybody likes X, whatever it is, but hey, I love it. Because there's some, I'm trying to think of some one off the top of my head where I was like, that is so weird. Okay, I got a perfect one.
Okay.
And this is right up Emma's angle. It was a Balcones rye whiskey. Okay, which Balcones rye whiskey is very different than any other rye whiskey. But this was a single cask, and it was 73% alcohol. So there, I mean, yeah. Okay, so Balcones is known for high proof points, right? That's kind of their thing. I don't know what they did with this whiskey, but it is the most weird and awesome whiskey at the same time. I will send you a sample of it. It is so good if you don't already have one. It is so good. It is so good and so weird. And it's like dark chocolate and mint. It's like Andy's mint if it was super dark chocolate. And then this weird piney note comes in the middle. It is so weird and complex and different, but I love it. And like I have amazing. Like half a bottle left, and I'm like, and of course it's hazmat, so you're like literally taking a thimbleful at a time, or you're like, oh Lord, it knocks you on your butt real fast. But I mean, it is so weird and cool at the same time, but it's just showing like it's a showcasing not only barrel and whiskey and whatever, but like the blending and all of and it's so that's what makes what I do and hopefully what you do makes it worth it, because when we get to try those things and when we get to be around people like yourself that are so happy and pushing this brand, not only the Westland brand, but American single malt to the forefront and saying, hey, look at us. We're here too. We're here too. Look at us. It really makes me think that, like, because I've talked about this at length, unfortunately, about the whiskey glut. The whiskey's going down. People aren't buying whiskey. The market's going to crash. All the, doom and gloom of whiskey. And I say poo-poo to you, because we are making excellent. Not we. I'm not licensed to transparency here.
You're one of our dear fans.
Absolutely. I'm an appreciator. But what I'm saying is there are people out there that don't really care if, they're not predicating to the masses. Like Westland, yes, you want to get, the best way to get more production line is to get whiskey into people's hands. And in order to have that, you have to do like you're doing right now, is get on these programs and just showcase it. But at the same time, some of these whiskeys, I would say like the Gary on a 10, is not really for the masses. Like we want it to be. We want everybody to have this endearing love for the whiskey, but this is more for the fans and the guys that are going to geek out on it and write notes on it and do all of the things. And that's what makes the whole community so cool, is because yes, you have your flagship. Let's just say that you have your flagship offering that you give to people and say, here, try us. We're something cool. We're something different. And then you want really different? Let's go over here. Because that we haven't even talked about, the peated offerings and the other offerings that you guys have in your portfolio, which is it's pretty broad in the way that you're doing it. It's just so cool to see the showcasing of whiskey and putting it up and saying, let the whiskey talk for itself, basically.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, getting people to try it is always the trickiest part. And that's usually the best step to take. And it's something that we definitely, try to do as well as every other whiskey brand, truly. Mm-hmm. Because then you get to actually experience it for yourself, right? Like I could say whatever, but it doesn't matter until you really get to try it. Absolutely. And then you go, oh, actually, you know what? My favorite thing when I'm out at whiskey festivals and sampling people and they come up to the table and they're like, tell me about Westland. And I don't know anything about you guys. Like, great. This is fantastic. Mm-hmm. We can start from a fresh slate and I will tell you all about our whiskeys, but first also tell me about your palate and what you're interested in. And let's try to find something here that is interesting to you and what you might connect with. And then when they actually get to try it, they go, oh, I've never had anything like that before. You're like, yes, right?
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. And you're like, yeah, thank you. And okay, let's continue this journey, right? Because there's so much to explore. Because there are things, you're right, that the Gariana 10 is for, certainly anybody can go get it, right? Like that's totally fine. And we welcome that, but it is certainly something that, yes, it's a nod to the fans, to the whiskey geeks, to the connoisseurs. And we just, we want more people to try it, of course, but flagship is sort of an entry point. Mm-hmm. And then you might explore beer and wine cask finish, because those are kind of the next level up. And it's another way to explore sort of cultural, I shouldn't use the word terroir, but we're going to say it, cultural terroir of our area, right? Like, oh, that's really cool. Then you might explore some single casks. Then you might explore Calere. You might explore Solum, then Gariana, and we also have these super fun distillery exclusives that we do that we're kind of bring the fun back into whiskey. It's not so self-serious. Like we're making booze, guys,
come on.
It's, but it's this fine line to walk. We take it seriously because we are passionate about what we do, right? But we also want to have fun, just like everybody else. So we have some fun offerings as well that are truly for then the people who come and you're like, yeah, try this. It's super, super interesting. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of different things.
There is. And that's it's like, we don't all, like when we're eating a Starburst, like we all have our favorite Starburst out of there, and then they came out with the all reds and everybody's like, yes. But then I'm like, I don't know. The lemon one's pretty good. Can we do? No.
I was just going to ask, who eats the yellow one?
Exactly.
Nobody eats the yellow one.
See, that's where we differ. No. So I am going to ask you a Caitlin Barlamay question because I know that she would be like, why didn't you ask that question? And I don't want to make her upset. So if you were a sandwich, what sandwich would you be?
Oh, gosh darn it. Okay. Ooh, I've got this. Oh boy, do I have this. Oh, buckle up. Okay.
Let's go.
And it's going to seem simple on its face, but I'm going to explain it to you and you're going to want it after this. So
got it.
For me, being a good Scotty, we need to look at a grilled cheese. So I'm going to have this lovely, I used to make this, a grilled cheese at home with, of course, cheddar. I'm sorry. It needs to be cheddar.
It's cheddar.
So you have the nice, crispy outside. Inside, you have the gooey, salty cheddar. And then you have this beautiful, obviously cut from corner to corner because we need to have angular. Mm-hmm. Then you are going to dunk this in my mother's homemade applesauce from apples that were grown in Wisconsin. The applesauce is made with cinnamon sticks, so it's like a little bit sweet. It's a little bit cold, so it has that touch of cinnamon, so it has this nice balance between the salty, crunchy, warm, gooey, and the cold, salty or cold, sweet cinnamon. That's what
Wow. Okay. Applesauce. Okay. Applesauce.
I promise it's good. It sounds weird, but it's awesome.
I'm with you. There are stranger things out there, right?
Yes.
It's fine. It's fine. Huh. Okay.
I don't know where we go from there.
Where do we go from there? It sounds amazing. And yeah, whoever puts American cheese on a grilled cheese needs to stop. Like, I do like a good like Gruyere or
Mhm.
Manchego or something like that. But some good Longhorn sharp cheese is pretty good too. So just saying. Okay, finish this sentence. Whiskey is like music because.
Hang on, give me a second.
No, you're good. You're good.
I love
I got
this.
all night until my wife yells at me.
Yeah. Approximately 26 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Whiskey is like music because it is all about the art form. They're equally crafted. It's an art form that is decisions are made to get the final product to your audience. And the main goal is to allow your audience to have a wonderful experience, a moving experience, an enjoyable experience in whatever way that can be. So it can vary, but it's a designed experience, and it's all an art form. Like there's art and science in both of them. If you're looking at music, there's a lot of mathematics that go in there too, and harmonics. Like that's all science, but there's emotion that you're trying to draw out of it, which can only be done with musicians who are very good at their craft. If it happens by accident, cool, but it's usually a very focused, designed. I keep saying that, but it's
right.
It's something that is created.
Right.
And whiskey is the same. Like you could follow a recipe, but there's no heart to that either.
There's not.
And you'll get adequate alcohol. Great. So what? But if you don't put your own spin on it, you don't have kind of this passion behind it, I don't think you're going to get the same type of whiskey that you could, where you have something that is a crafted thing where like, we're making this whiskey and we're like, we want you to have this kind of experience. And for me, I will just say this, I want people when they taste this whiskey to be transported to the Pacific Northwest. I want you to imagine that you're here. And for me, like the flagship, this began well before I worked here, was that when I was drinking it, especially the brown and the pale chocolate malts, they lend this like coffee chocolate note to the finish, which to me is so notable of Seattle. Like we have, obviously we're known for coffee, right?
Right.
We also have some really great chocolate here, but it just makes me, and the spices that were in there and everything, it just really made me think of on our regular rainy days, like, what are you going to do but sip something like this? And it makes me just be transported to this place. And so I think both music and whiskey, they're both art forms, can do the same thing, just in a different way.
That I couldn't have said it better myself. I don't know if you know of a band, and if you do, awesome. Named Meshuggah.
No, but tell me more.
Okay, so they're a heavy metal band, so you have to understand.
I definitely did not. Okay, yes, great.
Okay, so they are a heavy metal band, but all of their songs are mathematical equations. And so like the drum beat even is like da 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 da, like it's very off tempo, and it's very straight. Like you were saying earlier,
Schoenberg.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. But it also has some, some yelling and some heavy guitars and stuff like that. But it is so unique. Like I'm saying, it's not everybody's flavor, obviously, but it is so unique, and it just goes to show like music, and I'm trying to put a musical spin on it. It's not my favorite, right? I can't just like drive in the car and listen to it because I'm like, well, it's making me feel away, right? But it does have a place, obviously. But it's the way that you said it, how it's just. And somebody pretty awesome told me once that Daniel Whittington, but anyway, somebody pretty awesome told me once that when you're blending whiskeys or when you're putting whiskeys together, he's a musician, obviously. It's like building a song. You have your bass notes, and then you have your fill in, and then you have your little solos or your stuff on top that you're making this flavor featured artist. Like you're trying to just make it such a way. And I can say, and this is not blowing smoke at all, because I don't get paid to do this. That doesn't matter. you guys have done with both of these offerings. The flagship, this guy is available on shelves right now. Go pick it up. The Gary on 10. Good luck. Good luck. Find it if you can. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that, but you know what I meant. Like,
I did, but it was fantastic.
Get it while you can is what I'm trying to say. Get it while you can, because after we're done with this, I'm online right now. Anyway, but I'm just saying, like, if you haven't tried American single malt, I feel like, and I've talked to quite a few, not as many as Doug, but I've talked to quite a few American single malt producers, everybody from Whiskey Del Bach to Hinterhaus to great, Clear Creek, all of them that are doing absolutely amazing things. And I forgot 12 others. I'm sorry, Deer Hammer. Anyway, a lot of Virginia. Good Lord, how did I miss that one? I'm so sorry. Amanda, I'm sorry. No. So many cool American single malts. And if you're not out there trying it, what are you doing with your life? Because literally some of the best whiskey is coming out of these distilleries and you don't even know it because you are too worried about getting the new E.H. Taylor on the BTAC. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a tater hater, but at the same time, like, miss me with that mess. I'm not paying 2 G's for whiskey. I'm sorry. I will gladly pay $50-$60 for this all day long and enjoy it for the rest of my life. Now, there is something to be said about not drinking cheap whiskey because life is way too short to drink bottom shelf plastic bottle. No. Right. Plastic bottle whiskey. But at the same time, like, I can't afford all that expensive stuff, and I don't care. And I've tried some, and I'm sure you have as well, some of the very expensive whiskeys and not just bourbons, scotches as well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I'm not saying all of them because I've had some that are absolutely fantastic. One of them is in that black bottle right there, the Black Arts.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely fantastic. You can't get another bottle because it's so expensive, but it's not as expensive as, say, Pappy, though. So it's like, if you're going to get Pappy, you're spending 5-6 G's on it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I applaud Buffalo Trace for everything they're doing, but no whiskey is worth that much money. I'm sorry. No whiskey. It's everybody knows, and this as well. Whiskey is the poison. So it's like, why are we spending that much? I'll go get some arsenic. That's a lot cheaper.
Less enjoyable.
Less enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, but it depends on what you're aiming for, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
For all of this, it's like, for us and for me personally, whiskey is meant to be enjoyed. And it's meant to be enjoyed. Like, yes, obviously, sometimes you're going to be at home having a nice, quiet dram by yourself, and that's lovely. Mm-hmm. The best is when you're with friends and you're sharing things, or you're introducing other people to it, or you're just with your community. And that's my favorite part about it, is experiencing it in that way. But it's meant to be shared. I'm a big proponent of opening those gosh darn bottles that you have. Absolutely. Do not save. Now, do I have some that I have saved? Yes, but it's not because I'm not going to open them. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to open them. But the thing is, there's always going to be more whiskey. So it's not, there might be special bottles that are special to you for certain emotional reasons.
Right.
Great. And there are some that I am definitely, like my husband, there's at least a few. He's like, I don't touch that unless you say I can have some. I was like, great. Thanks, honey. And there's other ones that I'm like, I know this is your favorite, and I'm going to let that be because it's wasted on me. Mm-hmm. Great. But the rest of them, it's like, it's meant to be drunk. It's a liquid. Right. I have little patience for those that are just, and good for you if you want to be a collector. Cool. That's your hobby. Awesome. It's not mine, and it's not what I value, but I just want to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I just have some liquid in a fancy bottle. Okay. It is art in its own way. It certainly is. Right. But I mean, I want people to enjoy it,
It is art, but it's not like, say, a painting that you put on the wall. People look at it and they're like, yeah, that's cool. But I know for a fact when people come to my house and they see, I just finished all my whiskey shelves. Finally, good Lord, it's taken me forever. But anyway, they come and they see the plethora that is in there, and it is due to somewhat to the podcast. I'm not going to lie. I'm very generously gifted whiskey, and I appreciate it so much, and I'm not doubting that. But they see it and they're like, "Wow, do you have a problem?" And I'm like, no, because they're
No.
still there. They're not
Yeah.
in the trash can. Like I couldn't drink all that whiskey if I wanted to. And I don't have near the collection that a lot of people I know do. I'm like, I can't, I mean, I drink for the podcast and then I'll do my little deep dive or whatever. That's it. Like I'm not sitting there pounding all night. And that's the other thing about, and you can speak more to this and then I'll let you go. But that's another thing about most of the whiskey community is so much about enjoy the whiskey, but also keep it in check. The dry weeks and the dry Januaries and all of the things like making sure, and you can attest to this working for a distillery. I'm sure that you're, like you were saying, you said earlier, you were called in to try these samples. So like, it's condoned that you're drinking on the job as well, so it's like
Also spitting.
Well, that is a big thing. I've been to some, blind tastings and panels and stuff like that. None of those people, and I can guarantee you, none of those people, besides the ones that are, that probably shouldn't be there, are actually ingesting that whiskey. They're spitting it out, because when you go through 50, 100 whiskeys, 200, 2,000 whiskeys, there's no way you're going to be able to physically handle that. And you have to come back and do it again tomorrow. So it's just like, it's just the community understanding that we're not promoting over drinking or overindulgence or alcoholism or any of those things. We are promoting enjoy the whiskey that's in front of you, but also know that it has its own presence, right? So I don't know what you feel about.
It's something where it can be tricky when I'm telling people, especially now, given my previous work history, which is vastly different. And then now I'm like, oh, I'm working for a whiskey distillery. And they're like, oh gosh, okay. Oh, you must be drinking all the time. And you're like, no, I'm not actually drinking anymore. Or I mean, maybe even a little less, but than I was before, which wasn't a lot to begin with, because I drink for the flavors. I'm not drinking to get drunk. That's never been my goal. No, I'm interested in the craft, right? As we were discussing. And then one of the beautiful things that I love about whiskey is that you don't need very much in order to enjoy that. You're like, no, actually I just need a little bit and I'm fine. Now there are other times you're like, oh, actually I'm going to do a flight. So it's going to be a little bit more, and you prepare accordingly for such a thing, but that's not every night. I will say with the enjoyment piece, we have some dear friends of ours who are not in the industry, but my gosh, their palates are exquisite and I am jealous. Their palates are better than mine. I'm like, that is not fair. This is my job and your palates are better than mine.
Right.
But we have these projects that we work on every year, which is quite fun. And last year we did this bracketed whiskey exploration because they wanted to open their bottles because they have a great, and they're like, we need to drink this. And we're like, okay. So they built this whole bracket of basically finding our own personal whiskey of the year. So we would be doing blind flights, and they were all bracketed. And we had, every quarter there were different groupings that we were doing, and they kept track of, they had this massive list of things. They were keeping track of all of it. And so we got down then to New Year's Eve, and we were able to then have our final four still blind, but it was pretty easy to tell at that point what they all were, but then pick your whiskey of the year. Wow. And it was quite fun because we went through, well, they did 96, we did 72 because we didn't do the bourbon and rye section so much, but the rest of it was all single malt. And it was quite fun to just sort of do that. But it sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't over that amount of time.
Right.
And we're having little pours, and it really was to dive into the flavors and really understand and what we liked, what our palates were saying at that time. And so this year we have a different project that's more of a round robin. So you're trying the blinds multiple times to really sort of hone in on that. Of course, one of these friends, he's a statistician. So this is why. Makes total sense. But it's a fun kind of project and a way to explore the whiskeys that you have and understand palates and kind of and really understand what your own preferences are, because that's something that I I think is also interesting in the whiskey industry in total, that blenders like Amanda and, Caitlin has to do this, and Mark and everybody, and Shane, who is doing the blending, they aren't necessarily blending something that they prefer. You know what I mean? They are blending perhaps, and they probably do like it, of course, and they might prefer it, but that can't be the only thing, right? It has to be they're blending for this specific thing that is going to be balanced, that showcases flavors in the right way, or whatever. And that's always kind of interesting, because you think about it when you're doing, especially if you ever are on a judging panel for something, it's the same kind of thing. You're like, okay, is this faulted? No. If I like it, is not actually necessarily part of this equation.
Right.
Is this well balanced? Is it showcasing XYZ? Whatever. How's the nose? How's the palate? How do they interact? Blah, blah, blah. And that's just really interesting. But then you can also have the fun of it, where what we're doing is like, do you like it? Like, yes, no. And some of it's this is in the just not for me category. Like my husband, he is still in what we call his sherry era, where he really likes very strongly sherried whiskeys. And that's not for me right now. And that's okay. That's cool.
It fits everybody's palate differently, and that's okay. And I was actually on a blind tasting panel we were trying to pick the best Texas whiskey, and one of the categories was flavored whiskeys. And obviously that is completely different, because it's sugar and all of the other things. So I had to come at it very biasly. Like, I hate all of these. I don't want any of these to win. But there was one that I was like, looking at the audience and thinking, okay, this isn't for me, but the flavor, there's nothing bad at it. Like you were saying, there's nothing bad about it. It's very sweet, but it's also, it tastes exactly like it said it's going to taste. Like,
is it doing what it says on the tin?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, it literally said it was like pecan praline or something stupid like that. And I was like, that's exactly what it tastes like. This other one is trying to be Fireball. I don't like it, And so, like, I was like, yeah, that's the one. And that's, if you look at every whiskey that way, you're like, do I like this or not? And just be like, okay, I do like this. So move forward from there. And that's basically how you get into liking and finding your little niche profile. Like, one of the whiskeys I picked up from y'all was a take whiskey pick. And it was
good stuff.
Yeah, he does. And it was a Pinot de Charence finish, the 5 malt Pinot de Charence finish. And it is absolutely fantastic. And you know why? Because I found another bottle of something completely different. I think it was actually Iron Root Republic, which is, it's a bourbon for crying out loud, finished in a Pinot de Charence. And I was like, I really like that flavor note. So let's see if I can find it here and find it here. And then you find these flavors that you're just, I don't want to say chasing, but you're kind of chasing these flavors, but seeing the complex nuance difference from a 5 malt to a straight bourbon whiskey with Bloody Butcher corn. Like, it is so different, but it's the finish on it is the same, or this one note comes through. And so then it just, and this is way geekery, so get ready, but like, it just makes you a better whiskey drinker when you find that palate profile and you're like, okay, this is my marker, what we call marker for that. And so like when I drink a wheated whiskey or a wheated bourbon, I get the whopper, like the malt ball note on it almost all the time. And I'm like, okay, I know that's either a wheated bourbon or a wheat whiskey, one of the two. And so it's really cool when you can kind of trigger that in your head, and doing blind samples is the best way to do it.
I mean, doing basically you're calibrating your palate and understanding what it is that you're interpreting it as, because everybody's palate is different, obviously, for all the reasons we've talked about in the moment, but then also your history. What did you grow up eating and drinking? Everybody's taste buds are going to be vastly different. There's studies that have been that women have more nuanced and better flavor, or like can detect flavor better. We're like, well, yes, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. But otherwise, everybody's vastly different on what they're getting. And I think it's helpful to understand your own palate. So you can say, you know what, like for me, for example, I'm super sensitive, to sulfur. So if I'm tasting something that is sherry finished, it sometimes can have like strong matchstick or even more than that, or a hydrogen peroxide note.
Yes.
Okay. And some people are blind to it. Shane and I talk about this because he's like, yeah, you seem to be really sensitive to that. And I'm like, I am, and he isn't. So it's also important, I think, for whiskey makers, and a lot of them do this, but it's about, yes, having the rest of your team try your whiskeys and see, because you might have a blind spot.
Yes.
And actually, I don't know, Mark Viertaler has a good story about blind spots and flavors. So if you don't already know that story, it's worth asking. But yeah, it's important to know that and understand what your sensitivities are, and then also what you really enjoy. And then you can sort of go from there to pick the things you like. But then if you happen to be working in it, then you can design carefully.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, let's say your blind spot is, and I'm not going to say this try not to say this in a negative way, it's actually a fault in the whiskey. It's like a cut point or something, and you can't see it. And everybody else is like, dude, it tastes like a wet dog. Like, what are you talking about? And so like, you need to have a panel, that's like, hey, is this off? Is it me? Is it? And obviously, we've talked about this multiple times about resetting your palate and coming back to it later and doing all of the things. And obviously for us at home, we're not trying to build a brand and make a cohesive product like the flagship. Let's call the flagship. I know it changes a little bit through its different years and stuff like that as well, because you have different stock that you're putting into it, but you still have to make a baseline of something. And that's where I really commend like the bourbon makers, because as you well know, each cask is going to be a little bit different. I mean, they're all going to say 20% different sometimes. And so like, for them to be able to blend a Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 every time is going to taste the same. That's but I mean, when you're coming off of 3 million barrels, I'm sure you can make something work, right? I mean, good Lord.
It does help when you have a large vatting. It makes it easier to do that. That is correct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just goes to show the craftsmanship that really is behind, and I'll say it, behind craft whiskey, because you don't have the hundreds of thousands of barrels to go to say, you know what, this one needs a little spice, I'll pull this. And it is the same, because you're just doing it with a smaller amount, but it's like, it's like a chef or like a composer making great music. You have to have these little high notes and low notes and all of the things to make the blend. And that's why your blend bill is pretty vast. I mean, a lot of people, they're like, we blend these two whiskeys together and put them on the market. That's all we do. Yeah. So for you guys to be able to blend all of that stuff together and make it as cohesive, and I don't feel a disjointed part of it. There's everything is just very, for lack of a better word, melded together so much that it's like, yes, this was supposed to taste like this. This wasn't like, because you get a lot of times with finishes, especially in some brands, the finish is there to cover up a fault. And whereas I feel like the way that y'all did it was very just to uplift it a little bit and to give it a little bit of, and Mark from Whiskey Del Bach has said this to me multiple times. He goes, whenever I get to play, it's my distiller's cut. This is the whiskey I want to make. So this is my little pet project. Everything else is like, this is fun and I like it, and sometimes whatever. But like especially the one that they released recently in the summer, man, it was really nice. Third fill, Sauternes barrels and all that. Like, and that's what
I need to follow up with him for a bottle swap.
yeah, you do. It's excellent. Anyway, we're not talking about them, but that's what makes it so cool, is like just finding all these cool barrels, putting them all together. And I will tell you that the Gary on a 10 is an absolutely fantastic whiskey. I have a dribble left in there and still some in the sample bottle. Obviously, I'm going to save that to savor later. But it is so cool that, like, for one, a 10-year age statement, that's a big feat for a I'm not going to say a young distillery, but younger than everybody, all the other producers out there. So it's really cool to see a 10-year age statement, but that's not what really matters. Really, it's the liquid that's inside there that is creating this really cohesive, and not a Gary on a bomb. It's not just punching you in the face with wood. It's literally just a cohesive mashup, and that is very commendable for what you guys did, and the fact that it's still at that price point that it is just makes me love the brand even more.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty lucky that you're describing this, but as we have all these different casks and everything, that Shane does get to play a lot, but
Yeah.
I do too, in that when I get to sell them to independent bottlers, because it's quite fun to do that. One of my favorite things, because as we've discovered, I'm a whiskey geek, right? So I've already been drinking their stuff. This is not new. So when I get to actually talk to them and they're like, okay, what are you looking for? And they might give me a wish list of something, or oftentimes they're like, we want something really different. I'm like, okay, well, we have at least 65 different cask types in the warehouse. So you're going to have to be more specific than that. Like, what is your palate telling you? And we can do samples. Sometimes they'll come visit and we get to pull samples that way, which is super fun. Everybody loves that.
Sure.
It's not the greatest place to taste the whiskey though. From it's fun, but it is not, from a taste standpoint, the most ideal if you're looking to have a clear palate. Anyway,
right.
But super fun. But getting to do that and trying all these different things. And if you would name a cask finish, we probably have it, which is super fun. So it gives a lot of room for finding those different things for Shane to use in his blends, but then also for me to showcase our whiskey in a new way.
Yes.
And sometimes we'll do special releases at the distillery. We get to do the same thing. Single casks, obviously it's super fun. But I also really like with indie bottlers to see what they're going to do with our whiskey and see how, we're proud of our liquid. So what they're going to do from an artistic standpoint, and so you get to see the character of our spirit through a new lens. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And that some people don't necessarily understand or support independent bottlers if they're not in the kind of geeky section.
Right.
Like, no, it's actually really cool from a number of ways. And one of them is just from a pure enjoyment. You get to see what they're doing with it and what they're drawn to. Because we've done plenty of, this is quite funny, plenty of warehouse tastings with the fine folks from Single Cask Nation. So we've had Jason and Joshua and Jess come through and try different things and see what resonates with them versus what might resonate with, Nora and Adam or, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society or whatever. Like, it's going to be different, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. All right, Anna, this has been an absolutely fantastic talk. And I feel like there's room for more. So
I would agree. We didn't touch on all the things we said we were going to.
I understand. But you know what? I like, you got to leave them, hooked.
Leave them hanging. Yep,
leave them hanging a little bit. And also, my wife's going to yell at me. That's the other thing. So anyway, okay. Before we go, why don't you tell us a little bit about if somebody wants to purchase a bottle or something like that. Where they can find Westland whiskey.
Yeah, we are distributed to most states in the U.S. But if you were unsure, certainly reach out to us through email, info@westlanddistillery.com, or you can reach out to us via social media. We have multiple channels there. We can be found in Total Wines. We can be found in Specs in Texas. And there's certainly other outlets. But yeah, if you're unsure, just reach out. But you're going to see a lot of different offerings on the shelf. But I hope you find one that's right for you.
And I will say that the thing now, and I'm going to do a whole episode on this, is like more people are buying online now. They're not so much going to the liquor store, so they're going to Seal Box and they're going to Keg and Barrel or Bottle or whatever. They're going to all these online retailers, which is fine. The issue with that is sometimes you can't get core products, or sometimes you can't get a certain special release, or so you just have to kind of hedge your bets with it. I was able to fortunately find one on, I think it was Steelbox anyway. And it was exactly what I wanted. So that was great. But yeah, no, it's just getting out there and finding some Westland and trying it, and just understanding that these guys are doing some really cool things, and they're producing a whiskey that is inherently theirs, but it's also inherently American single malt. And it's one of the things, it's like kind of the backbone of what I feel American single malt needs to be. And this is another topic that I want to talk about. American single malt is not Scotch. It's not Scotch. Scotch is doing great. It's not Irish. It's its own thing, and we need to treat it as that and support it. And I hope that we were able to do that tonight.
Yeah, hope so. And also if you're looking for anything on our website, you can see if we do ship to your state. All information is on there, so it's
awesome. Awesome. Well, it has been a blast talking to you, and I can't thank you enough for coming and hanging out and sharing some great whiskey with us.
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time too.
I appreciate that. So for all the listeners and viewers, make sure that you follow everything I'm doing. There's the store. Do all the things. But y'all be good. Drink water. Come on, guys. What are you doing? Drink water. We're gonna die out here. You can't drink whiskey all your life. Please just drink some water. Anyway, y'all be good. And until next time, keep your spirits up. Peace out.